An Angel Named Honey, written by Gwen Michaelick and Jill Emerson. Prologue and dedication. As with any pet owner, it is difficult to express the love one has for their dog. Some would even go so far as to say their dog was indeed their soulmate. Others might even say their dog was an angel in disguise. This book is dedicated to one such dog named Honey. As a dog owner myself, always having had a dog, I know firsthand how special these furry creatures can be. I also know how they can find a special place in one's heart that no human being can fill. One such dog, who I am convinced was a very special creature for 15 years, played a most important role in the life of my sister, a role that no human being was able to fill. Honey, for my sister, was indeed her best friend and confidant. Seldom have I seen such dedication and love between a human being and their furry companion. A dog's purpose or mission on earth can be different depending on the circumstances involved. No matter what that may be, I know without a shadow of a doubt they do indeed have a purpose. When you think about it, what they ask in return for their love and devotion is very minimal compared to what others may ask of you. I have never seen a better example of unconditional love than that between a dog and his owner. You might ask yourself as a dog owner why this is, and indeed, what purpose do they serve? In Honey's case, I know she was sent from heaven to watch over and care for my only sister. The passing of Honey was not easy for my sister, as I saw her suffer as she watched her beloved friend prepare to return home. This little book is my way of expressing how deeply I love my sister, and in my own way shed a most important light on the life of Honey. Without a shadow of a doubt, I know Honey has returned from whence she has come. The telltale signs of an aging body have now been shed as her renewed body sparkles in the sunlight. Around her neck is the most beautiful pink bow, which looks simply stunning, resting against her fluffy white coat. Honey and her buddy, little boy, are free to roam the multiple gardens and fields in heaven. Her cousins Winky and Sugar are also among the many who are so looking forward to her return. Well done, they explained, and most of all, welcome home. I love you, Ginger. Forever your sister, Wendy. Introduction. Honey. One cannot begin to understand the magnitude of what is involved in a pet's arrival upon Earth. In fact, most would be quite surprised if they truly knew all that transpired before their beloved pet appeared to be in their lives. This process does not pertain to only one particular species. One of the most common and popular species known to mankind in the pet world is, of course, the dog. You have heard the expression, a dog is man's best friend. And for many a human, this is definitely the case. Of course, there are those who are lovers of cats, and they would say quite the opposite indeed. However, since this book is dedicated to the subject at hand, we will be talking about the journey of the life of a dog. Chapter 1, The Beginning. There are many angels who oversee the lives of humans, as well as angels relegated to various species and subjects. One such angel is Saint Francis. He loves all creatures, great and small, and keeps watch over the environment in which they live. Quite simply put, Saint Francis oversees where his precious friends will reside on earth and who they will be tending to. Of special interest to Saint Francis is the placement of what mankind refers to as pets. Now, ranking highly on the list of pets that man is most attracted to is what is often referred to as man's best friend. Yes, the dog. A dog's life, just as in all beings, begins in the heavens above. This is where they are created by our Heavenly Father, And as it is in all things, there is a purpose for each and every one. And so it is for the life of a dog, as a dog does indeed have a purpose. For each and every dog, his purpose could be different, depending on the circumstances involved. There are various assignments given depending on the particular needs of the person and or persons involved. Just as there are old souls in the human species, there are, of course, old souls in dogs as well. Dogs who fully understand the needs and the wants of whoever they will be keeping watch over. To name just a few, there are dogs who will be designated to work side by side with those who put their lives in danger every day, and even some who are highly trained as guide dogs for the blind and disabled. However, the most common assignments are those dogs who are sent to families who have children. Children who would love to have a furry playmate and companion in which they could while away the hours. A dog can not only be a great companion and friend, he can, of course, be one of the first to teach the young what it means to love and care for someone else. Yes, in this case, the dog is responsible for teaching the young the importance of caring for others, who quite clearly are dependent upon someone else for their well-being. Then, of course, there are very seasoned dogs who are sent to a specific human being. Who that dog is requires a great deal of research, as the dog must be perfectly matched to meet the needs of a very special human being. These dogs must play a significant role in the life of this person, as they would become their most trusted and best friend. Sad to say, for far too many, this could be their only friend until such time as another could take their place. Honey was indeed one such dog. She was well trained and possessed those particular traits that would enable her to be the best friend any human being could possibly want. For you see, this assignment was not to be her first assignment, as she had served in this capacity many times before. Granted, the circumstances were different, depending on the role that she would play, yet this role was by far one of the most difficult, for she would be required to fulfill the many needs of the beloved person she would be sent to watch over. It is not quite so simple being chosen for such a position, as there had been many other dogs equally as experienced as herself who were being considered for this particular human. Each dog would be evaluated on his or her past performance, as well as who would be best suited to meet the specific needs of the human involved. There was a great deal to take into consideration. Not only did the temperament and emotional needs of the person need to be considered, but the temperament and physical needs of the dog as well. The size of the dog would be an important factor in the selection process, as they must be well suited for the living conditions in which they would reside. Based on where this person resided, Honey was relieved it automatically ruled out the larger dogs who are often revered as great companions. Dogs who were more proficient in meeting the needs of their companion, but nonetheless, there were so far too many canines who were more than qualified for this position. Every interested dog was allowed to hear about the person they would be assigned to before they applied for the position. Upon review, they would be able to evaluate if in truth they would be well suited for this human. Now, Honey knew the competition would be very stiff, as this human being did indeed seem to have a heart of gold. There were many qualities revealed about the life of this human any dog would indeed revere. For one thing, this particular person had always expressed a great love for animals, having always had a dog or two, and even birds as well. Of most importance to every applicant was that none of the previous predecessors had ever died of neglect or lack of care. Additionally, Honey knew she would never lack for canine companionship at this particular home, because the human believed every dog should have another dog to keep him or her company. This, of course, would rule out some of the potential candidates, as many did not want to share the attention received with one of their fellow species. For Honey, this fact alone merely demonstrated the intense love of animals this individual possessed. Upon review, Honey could see there would be a beautiful backyard in which she would be able to roam. She so loved being able to smell the many magnificent scents the outdoors afforded a dog. Because this person was a lover of nature, Honey could only imagine the beautiful array of flowers this human would grow. Wow, she thought. She could just smell them all now. What a paradise for a dog this would be. Not only that, she could see there was a door which would give her the freedom to go in and out as she pleased. Oh, yes, this would be a job well worth competing for. Oh, she thought, keeping her paws crossed. Please, 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 let me be selected for this position. But like all things which needed to be considered, Honey also knew this person's beautiful heart of gold had been broken many times. Far too many times, if the truth be known. As a result, this most precious soul had all but closed herself off from any future human attachments. This role of this canine would be to help mend a broken heart, ultimately providing the companionship this person would need for many years to come. Chapter 2, The Selection. Honey knew full well how very much St. Francis loved this particular person, as she too was a lover of nature and his precious creatures. As this person was much like himself, he was quite particular in the selection process. Honey had now made it into the final round of potential applicants who were being heavily scrutinized for this position. To say that she and the others in waiting were a little anxious would be getting it or putting it mildly indeed. It seemed as though hours had passed by since the initial interview, and finally the moment had arrived when one would hear who was to be selected for this most opportune assignment. Then here it came. St. Francis eagerly announced who would be the one chosen for this auspicious assignment. At long last, the words she prayed would be spoken came. Honey, please step to the front of the line, as you have been chosen to be the one who will be sent to earth to provide your newfound friend with the love and companionship she desperately needs. Her name is Ginger. Oh, St. Francis, she barked, I won't disappoint you. I will be the very best friend and companion Ginger could ever want. I promise I will never leave her side, and I promise I will never desert her until such time, of course, that I'm called home. St. Francis loved seeing Honey's mounting enthusiasm, as she was indeed filled with insurmountable joy. For this reason alone, he knew he had indeed made the right decision. Chapter 3, The Arrival. When Honey first laid eyes on Ginger, she could not believe her good fortune. In fact, some would say it was indeed love at first sight. The love Ginger displayed was most reassuring. Ginger was well aware Honey would require a great deal of attention. Being a poodle, Honey could be startled quite easily, and yes, be ultra-sensitive to loud noises. Additionally, a poodle's coat must be groomed quite often. For these reasons and more, poodles were not well suited for families with children. In fact, some humans might even consider a poodle as neurotic, but not so with Ginger, as she seemed to adore each and everything about Honey the very first moment they met. Honey's new home was everything she had imagined and more. Although there were 2 birds who also lived there, she did not see any other animal on the premises. This was great as far as Honey was concerned, as this would provide an opportunity for Ginger and herself to get to know each other without the outside interference from another dog. She knew the birds would provide her with countless hours of entertainment. Since they were confined to a cage, she could tease them as much as she desired without fear of being pecked to death. Yes, this was going to be great fun indeed, and so it began, the beginning of a beautiful friendship between Honey and Ginger. Since no one else resided at the house, canine or otherwise, Ginger lavished her attention on Honey, and so it was, Honey enthusiastically responded to her every move. There was never a shortage of food. Honey, as promised, was allowed to explore the backyard whenever she pleased. Of course, the greatest luxury of all was being able to sleep with her new best friend. Honey knew from the other dogs this was a very special invite, as many humans did not allow their dogs to sleep with them, best friend or not, where there were even doggy steps by the bed to make it easy for her to climb into bed with the woman she had already come to love so very much. The days swiftly developed into a routine that any dog would cherish. Since there were no human beings who required Ginger's attention, one might say for each this was a most important relationship. And for a while, this seemed to be the case for both. In fact, the past 2 years had been the absolute best that any dog could ever hope for. Chapter 4. The Family Suddenly Grows. Much sooner than Honey would have liked, a new member was welcomed into the family. Little Boy, a new dog, suddenly appeared one day from seemingly out of nowhere. Little did Honey realize Ginger had purposely brought him home to become a permanent member in their perfect little family. For 2 years it had simply been Ginger, Honey, and the two birds. At first Honey was most indignant, as she thought the two of them had been doing just fine together. Why did Ginger think another dog was necessary? After all, there wasn't another human being coming to live with them. This was a question soon to be answered. As a result, it took time for Honey to adjust to Little Boy coming to live with the two of them. Over time, Honey began to realize Ginger had more than enough love to go around. In fact, Honey had grown increasingly concerned over the mounting loneliness in Ginger and thought that perhaps Little Boy could help to fill her friend's lonely moments. As the months went by, Honey grew accustomed to Little Boy being around. If the truth be known, she had even begun to enjoy his company. Although she and Ginger were best friends, there were some things about being a dog that Ginger just could not know, and as such, it was nice to have one of her own species in which to share the human experience. Honey recalled one such conversation in which she and Little Boy had observed that no matter what they would do, there seemed to be this prevailing sadness within their beloved friend. When this sadness would overcome their beloved human, they would both do their utmost to console her. As a result, they would lavish their attention on Ginger as they loved her so. This was easier said than done. No matter how much they would wag their furry tails, fetch balls, and drag in newfound treasures from outside, they could not sense or stop her pervading sadness. There was a loneliness within their beloved friend, which no matter how hard each tried, they could not overcome. And so it was, they settled into a family of 3. A family which, of course, was being observed in the heavens above. St. Francis, being the keeper of God's creatures, knew there would come a time when this little family would someday be replaced by another. But wait, I am getting ahead of myself. Let me explain. God's timing is precise. A dog's 1 year of life is equal to 7 years of a human being, which means in most cases a human will outlive the lifespan of a dog. While this may not seem fair, I do believe there is a divine purpose for this. Could it be then our canine friends are here to help us through a difficult transition and know when it's time to let go? Perhaps our dogs are indeed furry angels sent from above to nurture and guide us as we journey through life. For a human being whose dog is indeed a soulmate, it can be ever so painful to be left alone. As the years passed, Honey and Little Boy cherished their little family and life they had become accustomed to. It had never occurred to either one that someday this would all change. Chapter 5, Disaster Strikes. Suddenly, one day, the peace and tranquility of their little family seemed to shatter. The world was now suddenly faced with a pandemic that threatened the very lives of humans. Honey and Little Boy became consumed with worry for their precious friend. Fear was running rampant amongst the masses, as many were dying from a virus of which there was seemingly no cure. They could see how frightening it would be for any human, and prayed with all their hearts nothing would harm the very human they had come to love so very much. Although neither of them ever missed having another human in the house, they could now see how hard it must be for Ginger not having someone of her own kind to love and console her. Most humans were now cut off from any social contact, sheltering themselves in their homes. A home that at one time was their haven now became a place of confinement and unrest. It became increasingly difficult for those who lived alone to fill the void of loneliness which now consumed their dear friend. Honey and Little Boy worked extra hard to console Ginger, yet try as they might, it was a difficult job indeed. At the same time, both Honey and Little Boy were getting older. Little Boy had not been feeling well of late, and this additional worry over his beloved friend was taking a toll. He became increasingly anxious and temperamental. Little Boy knew his time was quickly approaching when he would be called home. He had no regrets in this regard, having lived a long and fruitful life with his dear friends. Yet his fervent prayer was that his beloved Ginger would not be left alone. He and Honey had many conversations prior to his passing, and Honey assured Little Boy she would do all in her power to take care of their beloved Ginger. As long as she was able, Honey would ensure no harm would come to their beautiful, beautiful friend. Even though Honey thought she was well prepared for Little Boy's passing, she never knew how much she would miss him until he was no longer around. Now for the first time she wondered how Ginger had ever managed without another companion of her own kind to love and console her. She would try extra hard to let Ginger know how very much she was loved indeed. Once again, the two of them settled into a routine, becoming increasingly dependent on one another. Honey saw to it she was by Ginger's side as much as possible. The bond which the two had developed was most special indeed, if not altogether most unique. Well, some might even go so far as to say they were indeed soul mates. Chapter 6, Here I Come. Honey sensed something monumental had changed. The months of seclusion had suddenly come to a halt. Ginger was beginning to go out into the world once again. Change was definitely coming. Could this be a change for the better, she asked herself. At first, Honey didn't know what to think when Ginger would leave her, but soon she understood she'd only be gone a short time and then come back home to her. Honey didn't mind, as she felt it was good for Ginger to be out amongst the humans once again. Just as Little Boy understood his time on earth was swiftly coming to an end, Honey was well aware she was feeling the effects of her age and prayed she would not have to leave her beloved Ginger alone. No, that would be too much for her to bear. She was, after all, 13 years old and had just about lost all of her ability to hear. Oh, she prayed, Dear Lord, please let me stay until you send another in my place, someone who will love her as much as Little Boy and myself. Now little did Honey know that Ginger's sister had also been fervently praying the Lord would send just the right person into Ginger's life, who would fill her heart with love and joy. Then a miracle happened. The prayers of her sister and Honey were answered. Along came Roger. Now when Honey first met Roger, she was, for lack of a better word, simply in awe. There were several reasons for this, of course. First and foremost, he was the first and only man she had ever seen Ginger with. Secondly, she was leery of strangers and, as you can well imagine, protective of her Ginger. For this reason, Honey was reluctant to be overly friendly with this human who suddenly appeared in Ginger's life. She would keep her eye on him. Although she would mind her manners, she would let him know in no uncertain terms who was boss if he were to get out of line. As the days passed and she could see Ginger was not in harm's way, Honey no longer worried Ginger was in any danger. Honey could sense how very much they enjoyed one another's company, and after all, it wasn't as though he lived there. She knew as soon as he left, it would just be the two of them again, and things would be like before. Yes, as long as she could still have her precious Ginger to herself sometimes, and not have to share her with someone else, she would be just fine. There were times in which she was jealous of Roger, especially when he would come for dinner and stay a while. She did not like it when she felt this way, as Ginger seemed to be happier than Honey had ever seen her. After all, isn't this what she had been praying for? It wasn't long before they were spending a great deal of time together, and then it happened. Her little family of two had now become a family of three. There was now another human being living in the house. Oh, thought Honey, where's little boy when I need him? What am I to do? Now, some would say this would be quite an adjustment for Honey. For so long as she and Ginger had been alone, she had been the center of Ginger's world, and now she feared she was being replaced. Try, though, as hard as she might, she could not help but like Roger, as he always seemed so cheerful and upbeat. Why, he even helped Ginger with the chores and cooking as well. Honey thought, only time will tell. It took a while, but once again, the family of three had fallen into a routine. Although not the same routine as before when little boy was alive, but it was beginning to feel quite comfortable. Time seemed to move more swiftly now, and Honey could feel the effects of aging on her body. She barely could hear at all anymore, and lately she was becoming increasingly more tired. Try as hard as she might, she just couldn't shake the feeling it was almost time for her to go home. She was, after all, 15 years old, which in any human years was 105. This fact alone accounted for the wear and tear now on Honey's body. She spent most of her days now resting, reminiscing about the life she had shared with her beloved Ginger. She remembered all too well how excited she was when she first met Ginger. Never could she have truly known the wonderful life she would have had with her beloved friend. They had shared so very much together. They had been there for each other through the good times and bad. Honey prayed Ginger would know how very much she loved her and how grateful she was to have been sent to watch over her. Oh, thought Honey, if only I could talk, I would tell her these things. How very special she is, and how I knew from the beginning what a beautiful heart she has. I would tell Roger, I know I can rest easy now that you are in Ginger's life, and yes, that you indeed are the answer to my prayer. Chapter 7, The Homecoming. It's time, exclaimed little boy. I can see you're getting closer and closer. He, along with his cousins, Winky and Sugar, were standing next to St. Francis. They would be the very first ones Honey would see when she approached the gate. The gate was adorned with every flower imaginable, as they knew how much Honey enjoyed the scent of lavender and jasmine. Now one cannot imagine the celebration that awaits a dog once he has completed his assignment on earth. There are so many souls awaiting their return. Friends and family members from years past gather as all are filled with joy, knowing there soon would be a reunion with their beautiful, beautiful friend. Balloons and flowers adorn the gates of heaven, which Honey would enter. They could be seen from afar as they were an luminous light guiding Honey homeward bound. Honey had been following the beam of light, accompanied by none other than St. Francis himself. This was most unusual, for he only escorted those who had gone far and above and beyond what was expected. Ah, yes, Honey was a canine angel of the utmost character, to be sure. She was a model example of what it means to be a companion to a human being. He had witnessed the love between Ginger and Honey, knowing it truly was a match made in heaven. Honey proved her undying love and faithfulness, which in turn was returned by Ginger. St. Francis watched how Honey's determination kept her by Ginger's side as long as possible. He also witnessed the caring and love Ginger portrayed as she sheltered Honey in her arms. If love could have healed Honey, she would still be on earth, as it was Honey far exceeded the years of most canines. Honey, however, fulfilled her promise to Little Boy, and she would not leave Ginger until another took her place. And take her place Roger did. Honey could rest easy knowing Ginger was now in good hands, cared for by someone of her own kind. She's here, yelled Little Boy. He was bursting with pride as he barked loudly above the others. Welcome home, my dear friend, welcome home. He knew they now would have countless hours in which to reminisce about their little family of 3, a family that one day would be reunited. In the meantime, they would watch over their dearest friend, confident that one day they indeed would be together again. In conclusion, this little book was written in remembrance of a dog named Honey and the joy she brought to my sister. As a pet owner myself, I believe all our precious furry friends that they are a special gift from our Heavenly Father. It is our fervent prayer that upon reading this book, it will bring comfort and joy to all the pet owners in the world. All one need do is substitute the names and faces and imagine their precious friends in much the same way. Joyfully, Wendy and Jillian.
We hope you enjoyed our narrated version of our little book entitled An Angel Named Honey, number 7 in our little book series. For more information on Abba and Company and the rest of our little book series, go to our website at www.earthangelsbook.com. We have PDF files that can be downloaded for free, as well as our YouTube channel where you can listen to an audio version of each of the books. Also, our original book, Earth Angels, where God reveals his great plan in these last days, is available on Amazon or Kindle. Thank you, and may God bless you.